pain is only bearable if we know it will end, not if we deny it exists. Live as if you were living a second time and as though you had acted wrongly the first time. For what then matters is to bear witness to the uniquely human potential at its best, which is to transform a personal tragedy into a triumph, to turn one's predicament into a human achievement. I try to do everything as soon as possible and not at the last moment. This ensures that, when I am overburdened with work, I will not face the added pressure of knowing that something is still to be done. But there was no need to be ashamed of tears, for tears bore witness that a man had the greatest of courage, the courage to suffer. When a man finds that it is his destiny to suffer, his unique opportunity lies in the way he bears his burden. Man's inner strength may raise him above his outward fate. The last freedom is choosing your attitude. Man is not fully conditioned and determined, but rather determines himself, whether he gives in to conditions or stands up to them. When a man cannot find meaning, he numbs himself with pleasure. A man's concern, even his despair, over the worthwhileness of life is an existential distress, but by no means a mental disease. The more one forgives himself, by giving himself to a cause to serve, or another person to love, the more human he is, and the more he actualizes himself. In times of crisis, people reach for meaning. Meaning is strength. Our survival may depend on our seeking and finding it. As for the concept of collective guilt, I personally think that it is totally unjustified to hold one person responsible for the behavior of another person or a collective of persons. If there is meaning in life at all, then there must be meaning in suffering. Man can only find meaning for his existence in something outside himself. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love and in love. Every human being has the freedom to change at any instant. View life as a series of movie frames. The ending and meaning may not be apparent until the very end of the movie, and yet, each of the hundreds of individual frames has meaning within the context of the whole movie. The more one forgets one's own self, the more human the person becomes. The point is not what we expect from life, but rather what life expects from us. Each of us carries a unique spark of the divine, and each of us is also an inseparable part of the web of life. The quest for meaning is the key to mental health and human flourishing. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. To suffer unnecessarily is masochistic rather than heroic. The attempt to develop a sense of humor and to see things in a humorous light is some kind of a trick learned while mastering the art of living. Self-actualization cannot be attained if it is made an end in itself, but only as a side effect of self-transcendence. Humor was another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation. No man should judge, unless he asks himself in absolute honesty, whether in a similar situation he might not have done the same. Even when it is not fully attained, we become better by striving for a higher goal. It is here that we encounter the central theme of existentialism. To live is to suffer, to survive is to find meaning in the suffering. Just as a small fire is extinguished by the storm, whereas a large fire is enhanced by it, likewise a weak faith is weakened by predicament and catastrophes, whereas a strong faith is strengthened by them. We can discover this meaning in life in 3 different ways. 1. By doing a deed. 2. By experiencing a value. And 3. By suffering. Man's main concern is not to gain pleasure or to avoid pain, but rather to see a meaning in his life. Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of his personality. Life asks of every individual a contribution, and it is up to that individual to discover what it should be. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning, such as the meaning of a sacrifice. Being tolerant does not mean that I share another one's belief, but it does mean that I acknowledge another one's right to believe and obey his own conscience. If we take a man as he is, we make him worse, but if we take man as he should be, we make him capable of becoming what he can be. It isn't the past which holds us back, it's the future, and how we undermine it today. There are 2 races of men in this world, but only these 2. The race of the decent man, and the race of the indecent man. Between stimulus and response is the freedom to choose. Our greatest human freedom is that, despite whatever our physical situation is in life, we are always free to choose our thoughts. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. The one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. Success, like happiness, is the unexpected side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself. Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. Life is not primarily a quest for pleasure, as Freud believed, or a quest for power, as Alfred Adler taught, but a quest for meaning. The greatest task for any person is to find meaning in his or her own life. Each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life he can only respond by being responsible. No one can become fully aware of the very essence of another human being unless he loves him. There is nothing in the world, I venture to say, that would so effectively help one to survive even the worst conditions as the knowledge that there is a meaning in one's life. Being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. The last of human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in a given set of circumstances. We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. Happiness must happen, and the same holds for success. You have to let it happen by not caring about it. Life can be pulled by goals just as surely as it can be pushed by drives. Challenging the meaning of life is the truest expression of the state of being human. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way,